Welcome back. We are starting a new set of lectures. All this would be an introduction to fuel cell stack and system design. Within the scope of this course, only an introduction to different topics can be attempted. A very detailed approach to all these topics would require a lot more lectures, which is not the aim of this course. Let's move on. The major components of a fuel cell system has these subparts. First, the central or the heart of the entire system is, of course, a fuel cell stack. It is not a single fuel cell, but a collection of fuel cells that is referred to as the fuel cell stack. Then you have a fuel processor, certain pre-treatments that are required before the fuel is sent to the stack. We will look at what are some of the pre-treatment. And there is the oxidant, which is going to oxidize the fuel. Overall, you would get the output which you desire is the electrical output. To get the desired output, just the power from the fuel cell stack has to be modulated. This is a matter of electrical and electronics engineering. We will not discuss too much of this, but eventually the goal is to get certain amount of electrical power at a certain voltage and current. The exhaust from a fuel cell stack can be as harmless as water vapor if the fuel is hydrogen and oxidant is oxygen, or it can be slightly more complicated. In most cases, the fuel cell acts like a flow reactor, which you see in a chemical engineering system. These tend to operate at steady state. As long as the fuel is supplied and oxidant is supplied, there'll be an exhaust and a steady supply of electrical power. In contrast to this flow reactor type of operation, we can also have a batch reactor. That means certain amount or a batch of fuel has been provided to a fuel cell and the operation is unsteady. It would still have a power conditioning module to have a particular kind of electrical power. So this has been attempted when a fuel cell is utilized for powering a laptop, for example. So a battery is a batch reactor, whereas a fuel cell can be operated as a continuous reactor. The comparison between batteries and fuel cell has been on for many, many decades, more than 100 years. What is more useful, whether battery or a fuel cell, depends upon the context. So in the case of, for example, in the case of Apollo mission, these are moon missions to by NASA. Fuel cells were preferred to batteries because they not only provided high specific energy in those times, in 1960s, for example, the exhaust water from the fuel cell can be used by astronauts. So even now, the context has to be closely looked at before deciding whether fuel cell or battery is preferable. Many kinds of fuels are possible. Any fuel that can be oxidized is a possibility. The most common fuel is, of course, hydrogen. Methane is also possible. Methanol is also possible. So these are all some common fuels that have been explored in the context of fuel cell. Many a time, the fuels have to be processed. For example, the fuel might have sulfur, which may degrade the fuel cell catalyst, electrocatalyst. So sulfur has to be removed from the fuel. Or hydrogen is typically not available readily. Let's say you do not generate hydrogen from electrolysis if it is to be supplied in a fuel cell. That doesn't make sense. So typically hydrogen is generated from an hydrocarbon source. In this case, hydrogen can be contaminated with a very small amount of carbon monoxide, but this small amount of carbon monoxide is sufficient to poison the electrocatalyst of a fuel cell. So the pre-processing step might involve removing carbon monoxide. So jargon that is you should be familiar with is called reformation, that typically refers to generating hydrogen from some hydrocarbon. This is a very important catalysis process. It is typically done using a heterogeneous catalyst. So in this case, you are talking about steam methane reforming. Let's say methane is reacted with H2O to generate carbon monoxide and hydrogen. Reformation reactions are endothermic in nature. You need heat to run a reformation reaction. So the waste heat from a fuel cell can be integrated with the reformer so that the waste heat is utilized for running this endothermic reaction. So this approach to heat integration, this heat integration improves the energy efficiency of a fuel cell. Carbon monoxide can further be reacted with H2O to generate carbon dioxide and H2. This is called water gas shift reaction. Again, this is a very important heterogeneous catalytic process that's been practiced in chemical industries for a long time. Water gas shift is a slightly exothermic reaction. So to improve its efficiency, eventually this has to be conducted at lower temperature. The removal of carbon monoxide in a stream of hydrogen would involve preferential oxidation of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. This is also a very interesting and important heterogeneous catalytic process. In the next lecture, we will look at some metrics, efficiency metrics of a fuel cell. Thank you.